Welcome back to AAD TV. As always, it's great to have you with us. The biannual African Aerospace and Defence Expo at the Waterkloof Air Force Base in South Africa this year signalled the start of AAD TV. Like in the past, hundreds of local and international exhibitors and thousands of visitors attended the continent's premier Aerospace and Defence Expo. Here are some of the highlights.
Scouting for opportunities and hopefully clinching business deals was the order of the day during the Trade Expo.
The energy and atmosphere is as hot as the African sky, and while it may be business for delegates and exhibitors who are quite keen on showcasing their products and striking up lucrative deals for the thousands of other visitors, it's just crazy fun.
Mixing business, innovation and showbiz, Africa's largest privately owned aerospace and defence company, Paramount, made quite a statement on the eve of the expo, launching their Parabot.
Well, Parabot is there to symbolise the move of the defence industry into the robotics realm. And it signifies our announcement of a new robotics division that will focus our energies on this sphere.
Paramount has decided to marry the unmanned vehicle systems or platforms with the robotics division to give us a focused attempt to integrate the battlefield today.
What we've been doing over the past few years is to create a whole force, multiplier type setup, where you've got aircraft, UAVs, armored vehicles, everything together, being able to communicate to each other, all self-supporting vehicles that you can deploy, rugged, built for tough conditions. And I think that's what makes us unique.
AAD 2014 also saw companies interested in opening up the market for equipment relatively unknown in Africa, like hovercrafts.
Well, a hovercraft is a marine vessel that operates by effectively floating on a cushion of air. They're very fast, they can operate in almost any terrain as long as it's flat. We're very good with hovercraft, but we're not so good with Africa, and we know what we know and we know what we don't know. So an important thing for us is to find some really good partners. And we've been really pleased with the interest that we've had from some excellent potential partners in Africa. So we hope that will be the springboard for us to develop our market throughout the region.
The expo is not only a place for the big established guns to do business. Various small companies also used it as an entry to the African aerospace and defence market.
This is my first time in Africa, and I have to say I'm utterly delighted to be here. Not least because everybody here is so receptive to the idea of working with the British. Blue Bear, the company, provides unmanned air platforms and unmanned maritime platforms for security and defence applications. So, for example, we have here a handheld device that you can put into a bag. It's very mobile. Everything that you need is backpacked, but you take the vehicle out, toss it into the air, walk to your ground control station and task it to look here, land there. There's no operator workload. It is all about executing the mission. Blue Bear has decided to look at South Africa and Africa in general as a market because we see that Africa has an appetite. It has an appetite for unmanned air vehicles, but it also has a need in terms of its security and policing.
And on the last day, an air show entertained young and old. Marise de Klerk, AAD TV.
Fighting the Ebola crisis in Sierra Leone has been a challenge that could not be tackled without international assistance. The United Kingdom says their contingent there consists of a combination of military and civilian assistance.
It is a combination of military and civilian assistance, and I think it reflected the nature of the problem in the first place. We first tried to draw attention to this with the international community, back in February of this year, and began to sort of accelerate and increase our assistance to Sierra Leone from about the summer. But now, in a way, the operations are fully up and sort of flying, but it's taken some time, and I think such was the severity of the way in which and the speed at which the illness was developing, that really putting in military capability was probably the right answer, just in terms of getting the right people on the ground quickly enough to provide the technical, the logistical, the medical support in an environment which of course was also becoming increasingly difficult because of the numbers being affected by the illness, fatally or not. So it did seem to us to call for a particular combination of, military and civilian support. And I would expect it will progressively become more civilian as time goes on. But that sort of reaction and sort of getting things going needed both types of assistance.
It's very interesting what you said, that it's going to move towards being more civilian. How do you recruit civilians?
From our National Health Service, we have put out successive calls for volunteers, and we've got an incredible response. Something like about 1,500 people have volunteered to come out as nurses or clinicians or laboratory testers or whatever, doctors as well, and GPs. And we have already now got our first group of volunteers are already in place. About 25 people went out earlier last month. Obviously it takes time to prepare people, to train people properly for an area of work that they will be trained for to a degree but won't have that specialist knowledge, and then obviously training when people get there.
And all this has to take place very quickly, I suppose, as well.
Yes, but it has to be done properly.
It's strategically planned.
Yes, there has been a plan that has been taken through. As I say, our first sort of approach was to obviously offer and provide the logistical backup and support to the Sierra Leone government who requested the assistance. So we are, for example, putting in progressively 700 treatment beds, which is about 3 or 4 times what existed when the disease broke out. And they need to go somewhere in the right kind of environment. So we've also been constructing and helping already constructed community centres to be proper places where people can go, because there's different kinds of beds required for examination, treatment and then aftercare. So it's been a logistical exercise of just having the right facilities in place, but obviously personnel then with the proper protective clothing and the protective sort of requirements. It's not really high tech that's been involved in a way, it's just been, very helping to support Sierra Leone's infrastructure to cope with such an infectious disease of this kind.
Do you work hand in hand with some of the other governments that are also in Sierra Leone?
Yes, we do, absolutely. We've been working closely with the Australians, with the New Zealanders, with Cuba. We were very much in Sierra Leone, and of course the United States has been sort of taking the lead in Liberia and France in Guinea, the 3 countries most affected. We certainly, I would say, devised the structure with the Sierra Leone government in which people have joined and have thought how best to provide their particular expertise or help. So South Africa, for example, has been staffing a laboratory testing facility for which we were really, they were one of the first people to actually put people on the ground, but people coming in with their, whatever it is that they've got most available to contribute. Perhaps it's nursing, perhaps it's diagnostics, perhaps it's simply people who can be there to help with the heavy lifting of the infrastructure coming in, or perhaps it's to offer psychiatric assistance and help. And there's another interesting aspect of it, which has been the work that's been going on with NGOs to help talk to traditional communities about being willing and sort of emboldened to report illness and to report deaths, and then obviously to handle the burials in the most safe manner for everybody involved, because that's one of the most infectious ways in which the disease has spread.
Reports coming through say that the situation is actually getting worse, but from some of the feedback that you're getting from your team, would you say that it is worsening or is it improving to some degree?
I think it's been seen as being getting worse because in a way that the peak has not been approached. The rate of infection seems at the moment to be slowing, and if that continues, then I think estimates at the moment, but I wouldn't want to sort of put too much money on these. You know, we're still finding our way through this crisis, but we hope very much that perhaps by January we'll be at the peak, and then it's managing it going down. But in Sierra Leone, I know of something like 7,000, sort of cumulative cases being reported, of which to date, sadly, 2,000 people have died. And we're investing also in more money into a very fast search for vaccines. GlaxoSmithKline, a UK company, has a prototype which is being tested. So people are putting money in to try and speed up that testing and to look at other solutions in parallel.
The United States Air Force has a special Air Force unit for Africa that is based in Germany. This Air Force unit came about after the merger of US Air Forces in Europe and Air Forces Africa in 2012.
And consolidated our resources due to basically the very restrictive budget environment in which we operate today. So what we try to do is conserve resources, restructure our staff to better support both continents without really losing any of our capabilities that we need to provide to the combatant commanders. The United States Air Forces in Europe and Air Forces Africa serves as the major command for two combatant commands. So United States European Command, as well as United States Africa Command. We've been operating throughout Europe for a long period of time, but since we don't have personnel stationed permanently in Africa, we send troops as well as folks from Europe to go temporarily serve on the continent when needed. Our primary focus in Africa really have been helping with humanitarian assistance, as well as conducting activities that enhance the capacity of the African Air Forces. On a formal level, we do have the African Air Chiefs Symposium, which brings in the senior Air Force African leaders to talk to us about what some of their priorities are and how we go about together trying to solve some of their air issues. And then at the lower level, you would have unit contact, where we send experts through traveling contact teams to work with the African forces on the ground on issues like maintenance and medical issues, as well as security. And then I would say at the operational level, which we regionalize the exchange with more African countries through what we call the Africa Partnership Flight, which really involves not just one country, but a regional approach to addressing concerns for more than just one African country at a time. And we also focus on maintenance, on medical, on security, all the things that make an Air Force a very effective Air Force. With all the security challenges that we do have going on around the world, coupled with budget constraints, we do our best to prioritize all the missions that are assigned to us. So whether it's Ebola or dealing with crisis in Ukraine, we feel like we have a process in place that allows us to be able to deal with what's going on around the entire world and not just what's happening in Africa and what's happening in Europe. Because of the way the U.S. manages our forces overall, we have a very robust prioritization methods that we use to decide where our forces should go based on what the priorities are. And more often than not, priorities are in both Europe and in Africa. So in essence, there are always things that we're doing in Africa because Africa fits into the priority of the overall U.S. effort.
And that's it from us at AAD TV for this year. Be sure to check out our special section for more coverage. We'll be back in the new year with the latest trends and news from the African aerospace and defense industry. All the best. Until then.